Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we try to unpack complex ideas into, well, accessible insights. Today we're plunging into the profound thought of Soren Kierkegaard. He's a huge figure from the 19th century, often called the architect of existentialism. Our mission, really, is to pull out the most essential nuggets from his pretty challenging work, helping you grasp his radical ideas quickly and thoroughly. And the core question for us today is something like, how do you truly become yourself in a world that often pushes for, conformity and objective truths?
Yeah, and what's fascinating, I think, is how Kierkegaard actively pushed back against the big system-building philosophy of his time. Think Hegel, these grand theories trying to explain everything rationally.
Right.
He just didn't see philosophy that way. For him, it wasn't abstract. It was an intensely lived thing, engaging with existence itself. And his method was really unique. He often used pseudonyms, different voices, and this idea of indirect communication.
Indirect communication, so not just laying it all out.
Exactly. It wasn't a direct lecture. It was more like a riddle or maybe the dialogue he'd set up. It pulls you in, forces you to actively reflect, not just passively soak it up.
Right, okay. So moving from that method, his philosophy is clearly not about these big systems. It's intensely personal. At its heart is this idea of the single individual and the paramount importance of subjective truth.
Subjective truth, yeah. He argued that truth isn't just objective, out there for everyone in the same way. It's deeply personal. It's uniquely shaped by your own experiences, your choices.
And he felt the Enlightenment focus on universal reason was kind of draining life of its passion.
Definitely, he called it nihilistic leveling, like a bland conformity where what makes an individual unique gets flattened out. It robs life of its deeper meaning, its purpose.
So if we kind of connect this to the bigger picture, his whole inward turn was a deliberate reaction.
A counter-movement, absolutely. He was asserting that the most vital truths, the ones that really matter, they reside within the individual's lived experience.
Yeah.
Which, raises that big question. What does it really mean to become yourself?
And he didn't see it as a destination, right? More like a process.
A continuous process, yeah. Becoming a dynamic struggle, constantly trying to reconcile our earthly limits with maybe our aspirations for something more, for eternity. Actively resisting that urge to just blend in.
Okay, to make this a bit more concrete, he offered a sort of roadmap for navigating existence, these famous 3 spheres of existence, almost like stages. Could you walk us through those?
Sure. So first, there's the aesthetic stage. This is all about pursuing pleasure, immediate gratification. Think of his character, the seducer, always chasing something new. But ultimately, this leads to boredom, emptiness, despair, really.
Okay, so the fun runs out, then what?
Then you might move into the ethical stage. Here, you commit to universal moral duties, societal norms. Think Judge William and his writings. This gives life structure some meaning. But Kierkegaard argued it's still insufficient. It doesn't answer the deepest, most personal questions of existence.
Which leads to the 3rd stage, the big one.
Precisely. That's the religious stage. And this, for him, transcends the ethical through a deeply personal relationship with God. It requires a leap of faith.
A leap of faith. Not just blind obedience, though.
No, not blind obedience. It's a terrifying, passionate commitment that demands everything from the individual. It goes beyond what logic or society says is rational. Think of Abraham and Isaac in Fear and Trembling. That whole idea of a teleological suspension of the ethical.
Right, suspending the ethical. That sounds intense.
It is. It's this terrifying idea that a higher divine purpose, a personal call from God, might, in some extraordinary cases, require you to break universal moral laws. Choosing to obey a seemingly absurd personal divine command, even if it means shattering every ethical rule, it creates this intense, solitary anxiety. You're completely alone in that choice.
Wow. That is a profound challenge. And that internal struggle, that anxiety, that leads us to another core concept for him, angst.
Yes. Angst. He argued that anxiety isn't just, a bad feeling. It's fundamental to being human. He called it the dizziness of freedom. It comes from seeing all the infinite possibilities laid out before us and feeling the massive weight of our own choices. But he didn't see it as something to just run away from. It's actually a catalyst for self-discovery, for truly becoming yourself.
And linked to that, he also talked quite a bit about despair.
Absolutely. Despair, which he famously called the sickness unto death. It's a kind of profound alienation from your true self. Often it's a refusal to be oneself authentically. But, and this is crucial, recognizing this despair, feeling it, is actually the first step on the road to being cured. It transforms suffering. It makes it a potential pathway for growth. True selfhood, for Kierkegaard, is ultimately realized through a deep personal faith.
And finding that authentic self meant pushing back against society's pressures, right? His critique of Christendom and the crowd feels incredibly relevant even now.
Very relevant. He wasn't really criticizing faith itself, but the sort of superficial cultural Christianity of his time, going through the motions. And the crowd, by extension, represented the unthinking, conforming masses. He urged you, the individual listener, to resist that kind of pressure, to truly take ownership of your life.
Yeah, you can really see why they call him the father of existentialism.
Undeniably. His influence is huge. You see it in philosophers like Sartre, psychologists like Rollo May, even artists like Edvard Munch. They're all grappling with that individual freedom, responsibility, the anxiety of it all. His work is still this powerful call to engage deeply with your own existence, embrace the tensions, the difficulties, and courageously choose a path toward authentic selfhood.
A profound challenge to conventional thought, definitely. So for you, the listener, what stands out most from all this? From Kierkegaard's insistence on the individual's solitary, passionate journey, is it that terrifying freedom he talks about, the demand for personal commitment? Or maybe the courage needed to resist the crowd? Something to ponder until our next deep dive.